Well, good evening, folks. Happy Friday night. I'm Jeffrey Darty, your friendly neighborhood Christian whistleblower, harmless little fuzzball, here to bring hopefully a little bit of joy, a little bit of entertainment, and maybe some inspiration to your Friday night. And I have with me tonight Dan from the OverWatch channel. I'll be honest with you. Friday night. Sorry, somebody says no audio. Oh, you don't have, somebody in the chat room doesn't have audio. Okay. You know how it is, Dan. Sometimes you wonder, did I turn it on or did I not turn it on? But I don't know a lot about Dan. There's a couple things that caught my eye about his channel, and I heard some good things about him. So we wanted to bring him on, introduce him, and chat with him. So Dan, welcome to the Gospel Truth Christian Whistleblower Extravaganza.
Well, thanks, Jeff. And first, let me just say thanks for inviting me on, and it's an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. And Amanda says that she likes your glasses, so you're off to a good start.
Yeah, they're Oakleys. They're really nice.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah.
So, Dan, tell us about the OverWatch channel.
Okay, well, I guess I need to go a little background before that.
Okay, feel free.
Yeah, really, this all started like from when I was really young. So I was born in a Roman Catholic family, and I went to
not much guilt though at all, right?
Yeah, right. I went through 12 years from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade in Catholic school. So now I would use the word rebellious, but in a good way. I wasn't like the kind of person that would make trouble, but I just wouldn't accept things being told to me. Even as a young child, I would want to know why, or, if something they showed me, like in the Bible, didn't make any sense to me, I would be the guy that drove the teachers crazy.
So, Dan, did you have to wear uniforms all 12 years?
Yeah, suit and tie, yeah.
No kidding.
I only wear a T-shirt and shorts now. No more.
Now, were you taught by nuns mainly?
Okay, now, yeah, actually in grammar school from kindergarten to 8th grade, I was taught by nuns, but there was also civilians in the school. Now, the civilians you could talk to, you could question them. Back when I went to grammar school, the nuns would hit you. Are the
stories of hitting you with the rulers and all that real?
Yeah, they were in my school, yes. Yeah.
Dan, you'll be glad to hear this. Somebody says that you look a smidge like Van Damme.
Really?
I'm thinking that's Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh, that's nice. I don't see it, but thanks.
And did you have an emblem patch on the blazer? We're being asked.
No, it was just off the shelf.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, would it be sexist for me to say that I would hate to be a guy wearing uniforms in a Catholic school, but somehow girls look a whole lot better in the Catholic school uniforms than boys?
Yeah, girls would always look better no matter what,
That's true. Amanda says she loved her blazer. She had a blazer and wore it, a very similar background to you. So anyway, I'm sorry, I digress. So you were asking questions. Something doesn't make sense to you, you question it.
Yeah, even as a young kid, like my parents would have the news on in the background, and I remember distinctly like CBS News would be on, Dan Rather would be on back then in the 70s, and it was just like I knew that before this term fake news ever came out, I just knew that it was manipulated information, but I didn't know why I knew that. It's just
how old were you?
Like 10 years old. And
you were figuring out they're not telling us the real story.
Yeah, it was always like a thing I had, but I didn't know where that was coming from.
I'll bet you if Heidi Vandenberg, our resident expert Vedic astrologer, did your chart, that you would be a Scorpio ascendant.
She did my chart.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, she did. I called her, or I got in contact with her, and she did it for free. I have her linked, and I have your site is linked on my website also.
Oh, great. Thank you. Now, were you Scorpio ascendant? Do you remember?
I think she said Virgo, I think.
Interesting.
But
you sound like she is an investigator, and you're going to tell us you have a law enforcement background. So I think those things are big with Scorpios, but I don't know. She's the expert.
She actually was throwing stuff out at me when she was talking to me, and it was she mentioned that would be good in investigative work, and she didn't know anything about me. She did not know anything, and it was like she rattled off like maybe 20 things about me that you couldn't know unless you knew me for a while.
She did the same thing to me, and I swore for a minute. I'm like, okay, somebody was feeding her information, but
yeah.
She's just really that good, folks.
Yeah, she's amazing. So
again, I got you off track.
That's okay. That's okay. So anyway,
challenge your skills as an interrogator.
So anyway, I went through an entire career of investigative type work. I'll tell you what, Jeff, I had interesting experience. I happened to be in a unique position when I was working, where I would work this in between shift that ended up covering all other shifts. And the whole term, like OverWatch, I'm sure you were in the military before.
I was. What branch were you in?
No, I wasn't. But
I make a joke because a lot of guys that are Army, Marines, they don't Navy, they don't think the Air Force was military. So I say I wasn't in the military, but I did serve 6 years in the Air Force.
Right. Yeah, I've heard you say that before. That's funny. The whole thing of being like that Overwatch position, right, where you can see everything,
right? And
it struck me as funny, like I would be crossing over all these different shifts, and I could kind of have a sense better of what was going on than sometimes the people in charge were. And sometimes I would try to warn somebody, like what you're doing is bad for you, or might end up ruin your career or whatever. But I would notice people just don't listen. They kind of get tunnel vision. And it was just something that later, after I retired, when I started doing my research, I started actually, it was a scary thing because I had been so indoctrinated with religion from Catholic school that the only path I thought was viable was some form of authentic Christianity, which is where I started looking.
So even though you weren't buying in, you still had the overarching indoctrination.
Well, yeah, because it's in your subconscious. Guilt, fear. If you don't believe in this, you're going to rot in hell forever. It's programmed into you. And so I started on my search. Actually, it was a roller coaster ride of emotions and information, because if you were to tell me back then, like 5 years ago, that 5 years from now, this is what I would believe, I would have said you were crazy. Because, matter of fact, you were somebody that initially to me was somebody to be avoided, because, like you were, you get this, like, if you're not in the Christian clique, or whatever it is that they're thinking, like if you become evil, right? So you're pushing like evil things.
I've heard that a few times lately, Dan, and it makes me feel good when someone came. Either I came to attack you, I studied to prove you wrong, I thought you were the devil, and now, after actually listening, I broke through. Or I have to tell you, it does work the other way too. I really loved you. Now I hate you. Yeah. Now, can you answer a question for me as a non-Catholic Protestant? Do you guys really believe in purgatory? Did you guys, Catholics, do they believe in purgatory?
They do. Yeah, it was taught to me in school. Yes.
And what is it exactly?
It's best I could describe it. And it's sort of, from what I can remember, is like a limbo type area where you're neither in heaven, neither in hell. You're sort of like in this limbo area.
And you just go like suffer there for a while until you earn your way through? Or
it's weird because Catholics don't believe in reincarnation, but it never made sense to me. I never understood it. I'm like, either I don't get what you're saying. There's a limbo area in between heaven and hell, and what is Earth exactly? Yeah, because to me sometimes Earth seemed like it was hell.
Whenever I hear limbo, I think of the thing with the pole across.
Yeah, right.
And you kind of are doing the limbo, aren't you?
Sort of, yeah, right, yeah.
So you were under this indoctrination. You still couldn't get out.
Yeah, initially, yeah, because I figured, well, Catholic religion is wrong, and plus I couldn't understand. There were certain things that would bother me so much, like for example, all the scandal that's come out of the Catholic Church. And all this criminal, like pedophile activity and everything like that. And then I would marvel at, I was still going to church during this time. And I would be like, why am I here? And why are these people here? Why does anybody follow this after some of the stuff that's comes out, you know? And then that, you know, I did take, give you a little bit more background about me.
And I ask myself that every day, Dan. Why do people still follow the Catholic Church, give money to the Catholic Church, knowing what they know?
Yeah, I actually do have sort of an answer for it. It was hard for me to accept it first, but so I have also a background going to college for psychology.
Oh, nice.
I have 2 years of that, and it finally dawned on me that the scope, I never really got this true scope of the power of cognitive biases in people until I started getting rid of mine, because I had cognitive problems because, okay, so Catholic can't be right, but Christianity must be. This modern day Christian stuff must be. But then there were certain things that just unraveled for me. It started unraveling. Like, for example, take Adam and Eve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, take this whole concept of Adam and Eve. Now, if you're not in law enforcement, if you're not trained in a lot of this stuff, you really wouldn't notice this. But what the Bible's really telling you is that Adam and Eve were created criminally insane because they have no ability to distinguish between good and evil. Then they're given a rule to follow, which can't be held liable. In any court in America, they would not be liable for anything, because you have to know the difference between good and evil to be liable for a crime. So how could you punish? And then it really didn't make sense. Well, if they made a mistake, why has everybody been punished for 6,000 years? I mean, none of this stuff made any sense. And then you go into like, I'm sure you know, like Judges 11, right? The deal, I can't pronounce that guy's name. The guy that makes a deal, that first person comes out of his house gets.
And then he ends up having to sacrifice his daughter.
When Jehovah's Witnesses come to my door, I discuss things with them. I bring these things up, and they look like deer frozen in headlights. They don't know what to do with somebody that actually read the entire Bible. One of the things I had to do was actually to figure out what's going on. I said, I can't just be listening to these Christian truther YouTubers and not know the whole story. So Dan, I
have to stop you right there. Are you telling me that you can't trust everything you hear on YouTube?
Yeah, you can't. No, but
really,
but the thing is that everybody has information to offer, right? People have information. The problem is people give you information with their point of view and interpretation attached. So it's like this package, right? So you get like information, which is pure, it's raw, it's data, right?
Right.
And then you have their junk that comes along with it, their cognitive issues, their biases, their programming, right? But you can separate that from anybody. You can listen to anybody, no matter what their point of view is, or if they're atheist, if they're religious, and you can pick apart the information, and then you start putting it together. And then when you put it together, it starts to form a picture after a while. I'm
laughing because Rex Bear from the Leak Project just popped in. He says, but everything on the internet is real.
I watch Rex. A lot.
Rex is he's like the master mentor of YouTube, and he really has opened a lot of connections and launched a lot of ships. So we do owe him a debt of gratitude. That's for sure.
He's both you and him have a lot of energy, and I can't believe how many times you put out videos and find new information.
That's because I don't have a girlfriend, Dan.
It's Florida.
It is.
Anyway.
Now, how did you get into police work?
When I was in college for psychology, after a while, I started realizing, you know what, these teachers that are teaching me, they're the crazy ones.
Wow.
So I said, this isn't for me. I need more direct, like right, wrong. It's more structure.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it was just a plus. Plus, it was a way I thought to actually genuinely help people, which I really did try to do throughout my career. you know, it's just you're put in a position where you have the privilege of, you know, actually helping people when you can. And there were a lot, if you know, I worked with a lot of good people where I worked. It was a good experience.
So there's a question that popped up in the chat room, and you know, we have this whole thing in America now of, you know, bad cops, and there are some bad cops making some bad mistakes, and there seems to be an overriding belief, at least within a lot of people, that all cops are bad and they're all power hungry. They all got beat up in high school, and that's the only reason they became a cop. Can you speak to that?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, when you think of the sheer number of actual cops in America, which is a lot, and then the incidents they should. Well, you see, the thing is this: the media. I don't know if you. I'm sure you've noticed this. The media has people always focused on something, right?
Correct.
And when they create mindsets in masses of people, and there's a psychologist from the 1800s. I think he wrote a book called The Group Mind.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get people thinking in a group, they become mindless. They flow and sway with whatever forces are driving them. And there's really, it's not really news, right? It's all about manipulation. So
absolutely,
even when they edit stories, like for example, what you did, one of the things I found.
Project says bingo.
One of the things that you did that I thought was so amazing, that if I had realized this sooner, it would have actually helped me unravel things a lot faster, is point out the order of the books in the Bible, how they're out of order. And that, of course, changes the whole picture. Well,
yeah, that's the great place to start. That's number one. Start there.
Yeah, the news does the same thing. They edit information so that you see it only a certain way. So forget about the majority of good. They create that it's all bad. And even with politics, I mean, it's just like a false dichotomy. We don't really have two parties in America.
No, we don't.
We have one machine that looks like it's fighting each other. And
absolutely.
If I remember my history, that was Stalin's game plan.
It was. Now, so would you say from personal experience that the vast majority of law enforcement professionals are good, decent, hardworking people? They
are, from my personal experience.
Okay. I agree with you. We've all had some run-ins with power-hungry cops, but think about it. You've had run-ins with power-hungry doctors and lawyers and dentists and checkout clerks at the grocery store as well. So,
well, yeah, sure. I mean, there were people that I thought were jerks, of course, you know, that I work with, and I'm like, that guy's a jerk or this guy's an idiot. Yeah. These people slip through the system everywhere because you like you said, I mean, you can go into a bank and get some teller that, you know, make you want to reach over the counter. Right. You know, you can go to Division of Motor Vehicles, and you know. Right.
So you have to remember, these men and women go out there every day, and literally there are people out there that want to shoot them just to shoot them. So there is a danger involved, and there is I would say probably a growing degree of caution. And Rex makes a great statement. If you respect the police, they usually will return it.
Yeah, sure. But it's like it's back to that mind control aspect from the media. I mean, it's amazing to me. Nobody knows they never let up. Do you remember is it a blue dress or is it a gold dress?
I remember seeing that. I never even gave 1 second of thinking about it, but I remember seeing it.
It doesn't matter. It's amazing to me that. And then everybody will, I mean, I'm like, who cares what color a dress is? Who gives a crap? Or before 9/11, it was day in and day out sharks. But that's true. But there were no any more shark attacks than any other time. It was normal activity. Yep. But the news created a shark emergency. And then the 9/11 happens. And when big things happen, then they focused on that stuff.
And, you know, it was 10 or 15 years ago that Chris Rock told us very simply, if you make the police chase you, they're bringing an ass whipping with them. And it's just gotten worse. So, I mean, yeah. Yeah, well. You see that meme, the Willy Wonka meme. having trouble with the police? Have you tried obeying the law? So, I mean, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. And
how long were you a police officer?
I did my full career. You know, I retired.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I retired, and that's I came down here, and I'm a big tech guy, so I love computers. I love I love like learning how to program and HTML, that kind of stuff. So with that kind of stuff, and then I'm down here, and for some reason, it clicked. And sometimes you got to wonder if something did happen around 2012, because it was around 2012 that I decided, well, I'd like to know what reality really is all about. Mm-hmm. And then I started down my journey. At first, I told you I drifted toward this Christian truther stuff because I had nowhere else to go.
Now, how do you define that, Christian truther? What does that mean to you?
It's a semi-fundamentalist. They focus a lot on the book of Revelation.
Oh, okay.
And they focus about end times. You know, you talk about L.A. Marzulli.
Yeah, so the Marzulli Clark crowd.
Yeah, those.
And we can't forget Breaker, Brother Breaker 19. Brother Robert Breaker.
But I gotta tell you, like the book of Revelation is nothing. It's just I did 2 videos on that, maybe 3. Explained that
I did 3 more than everybody wished I would have done.
I put your videos in my playlist, the ones you did on Revelation. But like I try to explain to people, I want you to think about this, you know, from beginning to end. So I did go through the entire Bible, even the book of Chronicles, which is like a laundry list. I went through the entire Bible, cover to cover, not once, but multiple times in different translations. I went through the Septuagint. I went through the Book of Enoch. And then I was really confused because you have what the Bible says, which your cognitive issues, biases, and stuff filters out, so you're not really reading what it says, and then you have all this crap coming to you from apologists. Because once you read this stuff, of course you're like, oh, that I don't like that, or that doesn't sound right to me. How do I understand this? And then, of course, you run to the apologists who are there. And then I want you to think of the ridiculousness of this. I'm sure you've thought of this. You have a book that they claim is the inerrant word of the creator of everything in the universe. So the guy who coded DNA, the guy who assembled planets and everything. And then unlike humans, like we make things like cars, for example, right? Now your car comes with an owner's manual, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it comes with an owner's manual. It's pretty big. It's like the Bible of the car, right?
It is.
And the Bible's supposed to be.
This guy is a former cop.
The Bible is supposed to be like the manual for the universe, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now imagine you bought a car and then you needed a bunch of apologists to tell you what the hell was in your manual because it didn't make any sense.
Well, that's a great analogy.
All right. So I'm like, this can't be correct. I should be able to this should be, I open this up and I go, oh, of course, this is the universe and how everything works. Instead I get, why is he slaughtering all these people? why is all this stuff happening here? Why would somebody be jealous and vengeful when jealousy is a emotion of insecurity?
Yeah. You know what I just realized today, I think, or last night? The Bible really is the Word of God. The Bible is 100% the Word of God from Genesis 1:1 to Revelation 22:21. It is the Word of God, but it's not the word of the divine creators.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, and I understand. I used to use Bible Hub all the time too when I was going through this process.
It's a great site.
Yeah, they don't know that people like us are using it.
No, they would shut us down if they could. If they did.
So, I mean, the interlinear, and you can clearly find that things are mistranslated. You can go into the background of the King James, and there's people out there like. Focused like a laser beam. The King James is the only book you can read. That's
right. If it was good enough for Paul and Silas, it's good enough for me.
Right. And then, but it's just like this. It's a mountain of information to go through. It took me years to go through, but you've been doing it a lot longer, and really it does show like that New Testament when you show how it reorders you know, that James is first, and then
Yeah, that's
and then
huge.
and then
That's
there's a Paul rebuttal, and then there's something else, and
yeah.
then you can see this is not a coherent book. This is a debate. This is
It
an
is.
argument to take over a
It
religion.
is. Can we circle back to law enforcement a second? There was a couple of good questions that I forgot to ask.
Sure.
And I don't, if you can't talk about this stuff, just say you can't talk about it. But as a career law enforcement officer, how widespread would you say abuse of children is in our society?
Well, abuse. You mean like parental abuse, or?
More of sexual abuse of children.
It's I see now. In my division, I didn't deal with that much.
Oh, okay.
And where I worked, it was more like straight up crime. Yeah, we had some. I dealt with some cases of abuse, but it was more like the parents would hit their kid in a, you know, violence type of stuff, and then we'd have to go in there and do something about it.
Gotcha.
But it wasn't like that. That was handled by a separate unit.
Gotcha.
So there is sort of
So
like,
that's just like Law and Order. There really is a special child unit or whatever.
there was where I worked, but in
Okay.
small departments, no. But where I worked was larger, and so like it was an uncomfortable topic, so it wasn't something that I would go over and talk to them about.
I understand. How about post-traumatic stress disorder? A lot of people in law enforcement suffer from that.
Not that I know of. I never did, but I mean, I experienced some events that you could say were pretty rough. But I think that it helped me actually, because like I have friends that I'll discuss what I'm talking to you about with.
Right.
When I come up with my conclusions, they see my logic and my art, you know, where I'm going, but they clearly they stop me at some point and go, look, that's too disturbing. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
TMI, right?
Yeah, and then I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can deal with it because I got used to dealing with disturbing information. You know,
That's a really good point. That's a really. And speaking of that, what if somebody asked you, "Hey, Dan, talk to me about trauma-based mind control"? What would your response be?
Well, the newest thing that popped in my head was this whole thing with Vegas. There is something bizarre. Even without knowing anything about anything, there's something so bizarre just even how the media is handling this. I mean, I think about the number of people that were killed and the enormousness of the whole thing.
Absolutely.
And all I can say is something went wrong with their whatever it was going on over there, because I have never seen the media get distracted away from something this big. You know, they just seem to want to move away from it and not talk.
In a New York minute, didn't they?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Like, and I'm there's like you could tell that sheriff over there is under a stress. You can see that he does not like to deal with these feds.
And he almost wants to, just be straight up, but they're telling him he can't be straight up.
There's obviously something that's bothering him and stressing him out a lot, because you can tell. And a lot of these guys that are media savvy, they're able to cover that up most of the time when they're talking to the press. But
now, Dan, is he Clark County Sheriff or is he Metro LVPD?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know, but just seeing clips of him talking, you watch that brother, and then this guy's bizarre background where we don't know anything about. How could they not know anything about this guy?
And then the other brother's straight up institutionalized crazy.
Yeah, and then his father was this psychopath, and I mean, if you look at some of the scary stuff that the government actually has declassified, like Operation Northwoods or MK Ultra and all this other stuff, and
can you explain Northwoods to the audience just real briefly?
Northwoods was this crazy plan they had in the 60s, which John F. Kennedy stopped. And I think he fired a whole bunch of people. It came from the CIA and the Pentagon. And you can go on their own website and look at it. And it's like this crazy idea of setting up a false flag attack. I think they wanted to sink a ship, maybe crash a couple of planes. have people invading to Guantanamo or something like that. And then it was all the Cubans' fault. We have to go down there and annihilate them. And it was going to be, we would have political backing to do this. And I think,
I wasn't a real big Kennedy fan until I started becoming, woke up a little bit more and understood what he was going through. I mean, I was a Republican back when I was really into it. And you just think, if he hadn't had some integrity, they would have pulled the trigger on that, and it could have changed the course of history, maybe in a good way. But it's still, I mean, Kennedy actually had some integrity and said, no, we're not doing that. We can't do that. It's a violation of international law, and it's just wrong.
Yeah. I mean, you see, I was also like you, right? So I'm actually listed as no party affiliation down here. But, I just see like the majority of these people are in like this Hegelian dialectic type thing where they just.
And could you explain what the Hegelian dialectic is to the group?
It's a funny word that comes out of the guy that coined the idea, this Hegel psychiatrist or whatever he was, and it's just basically the false dilemma. Like you're in control of both sides, and the people that they get people polarized, which is something that I think is very powerful, especially with emotional people.
Absolutely.
Because once they get polarized, you can't reason with them at all.
Right. So it's the divide and conquer, problem, reaction, solution paradigm.
Yeah. So these people, they think they're on one side and they're against the other side. But really, it's a subtle manipulation. There is no two sides,
Exactly. They're both wings on the same bird.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And it took me a long time to figure that out.
And you've got the Charlottesville thing. You had the guy at the University of Florida giving a speech about, white supremacy. You have they're pulling down, and I mean, sometimes I even fall for it. I'm like, listen, ISIS is tearing down cultural landmarks and that's bad, but these chuckleheads are pulling down Confederate statues and that's okay. I mean, history is history, and it's like, why are we destroying history? So sometimes even I get sucked into it, where I should be able to sit back and say, okay, they're just trying to trigger me. Relax, think of the things that are really important.
Yeah. There's a lot of sure, I do too. Everybody gets sucked into it. You can't be completely neutral. I'm sure you read that book, the Kabbalion by the Three Initiates.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, if you're completely neutral in polarization, you're literally like dead. You don't move. Like you can't react to anything. So it's like a trick. You got to kind of like stay orbiting around the middle, kind of fluctuating from one side to the other. And that's when you can kind of see what's really going on. And if you get pulled over to one of these sides, then you can't reason or see anymore.
It's interesting when you say that, Dan, because if you're thinking just about, heaven forbid we say a sphere, but if you're thinking about a sphere, you're thinking about a paradigm, if you're too far to one side, you lose perspective. The best perspective in any paradigm is to be in the middle, so you can get the best view of all sides.
Yeah. That's exactly what caused me to. I've had experience with that. Being sort of an outsider looking at things was how it would solve a lot of problems or investigate things and come up with a solution. And it was when I started realizing, hey, I'm not doing that here. I'm stuck on this. I got to be this find authentic Christianity, but I'm not finding it anywhere. At least not modern day Christianity.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay. So I started to say, well, you know what? The next logical answer is that all this is wrong. You have your atheists, and they are, whether they want to admit it or not, they're materialists. They want to believe.
Listen to this, Dan. It just popped up. A person in this chat room went to school with Lee Oswald's daughters.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. Yeah, I don't know what happened with that assassination. I mean, you saw that they refiled 25 more years of secrecy on.
I did not see that.
They were supposed to release some JFK documents this week. And they were reclassified for another 25 years.
So Trump could have let that out, and he didn't.
I suppose I don't know how that procedure works with the federal government,
Right?
with secrecy, but it's just
So it may not be President Trump, but they put another 25 years on it.
somebody did somehow.
Wow.
Reclassified. So
Not surprising, but yet still somehow disappointing.
yeah, I mean, I believe me, I'm not a guy that started on this road being into conspiracies or anything like that. But there are certain things that just, when you just look at them as an outsider, you can't help but notice. I mean, remember, was it 6 months ago, that big building in London caught on fire? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So this building is burning for days or whatever. It's burning
Days and days and days. And it's nowhere near as strong and steel reinforced as the World Trade Centers.
But it's not even just the World Trade. You're talking about Building 7 now.
Yes.
All these architects and engineers. And it's true. I mean, you can. I grew up in the Northeast. In Philadelphia, there was a building fire like once a week when I was little.
Yeah.
No buildings ever collapsed. And you can't do that on a whim. You can't that building's on fire, we need to implode it. Just run in there and set explosives up. It takes engineers and it takes time. And I looked into how some of this stuff was
done.
How
long does it take, Dan, would you say, if you decided we're taking this building down? How many days is it going to take?
I don't know. Just from what I read from like some of these architects and engineers, it usually takes a month of planning.
Wow. So if they were really pressed, they could do it in a couple of weeks, but you can't just run in there and do it.
Not for sure. You might make a bigger disaster if you screw it up and the building starts going sideways or something. Yeah.
Somebody puts PSFA building in Philly. You know what they're referring to?
I don't know what that is. No.
Okay.
I don't know what that is. But anyway, so back to the kind of like the behind all this, there's a metaphysical side, forces that that are there. Now, how I came to this conclusion intellectually was the near-death experience data. Okay, there is
did you have one yourself, Dan?
No, I've had incidents of things like, okay, let me show you something. Hold on.
Okay, please. And if you want to ask questions in the chat room, please go ahead and put them in. As you can see, I'm a little OC.
I don't see anything. I just see you and me.
Oh, because you're looking at the Zoom.
Yes.
I actually have another window open on my desktop where I've got the live, my YouTube channel, and it shows the live show, and you can pull that up, and if you mute it, you won't get any feedback, and you're also able to see the chat.
Oh, let me try to do that. Let me see.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you do have questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat room. You can see I'm a little obsessive compulsive with that, and I do keep a pretty good eye on it. And thanks very much to the folks that are acting as moderators. And if you see a good question that I miss, just maybe pop it up a couple times in all caps, and hopefully I'll see it. Moderators, if you see a good question that I missed. Yeah, and if you just mute that, you'll be good to go.
Yeah, I just muted it. Okay. Yep. All right. So
anything you see from Lee Veltman, just take that with about 6 grains of salt.
Okay. Everything's moving pretty quick then.
Yeah, it goes pretty fast.
Okay, I want to show you something now. Let me see if you can see this.
Please do.
Okay. Let me go back to the main.
Is that an arrowhead?
Yes. Yeah, I want to tell you a story about this arrowhead.
Dan, you retired as a police officer, correct?
Yeah, I'm retired. Yeah.
Okay.
So see this arrowhead here?
That's beautiful.
Yes. Now I'll tell you how I found this arrowhead. And this is how I know that this is one of the reasons I know that, if you're stuck in reductive materialism, you're just wrong. Okay. This arrowhead here. Okay. So when I was a kid, my dad was building a shed in the backyard in our house, and I was helping him dig 4 foundation points. And it was getting darker out. It's kind of cold. And I was in a moment, and I wish I could reproduce this because I'm not exactly sure how I did this. Mm-hmm. I was sort of in like this moment of being like not thinking about anything and sort of like very calm and normally I was really hyper as a kid, so it was like an unusual thing, right? So in the dirt underground, I saw this, but I wasn't seeing it with my eyes. It was in my mind. Now I not only knew that it was there, but I sort of had a knowing of what it was. Okay. And I kept it to this day. I think I found this when I was 8 or 9 years old.
Do you know what kind of stone that is?
It looks like flint to me.
Yeah, that's a work of art. It really is.
Yeah. So it was like maybe a foot underground. I remember I was sort of like in a I want to say a trance, but I was like in a state of mind that was like not normal because I was like seeing this, but I wasn't seeing it.
It was almost like you went into a meditative state.
Yeah, by accident.
Yeah, by accident.
And then I took it into the house. I remember my mom was upset because I actually couldn't see it yet. It was in a ball of dirt. And I took it over to the bathroom sink and she started like, she's Italian and she starts yelling at me in Italian, "What are you doing bringing mud in the house?" And as she was standing there, as the mud washed away in the sink and then some pebbles and things, and then this was there. But I already knew it was there. So that was
what did she say, Dan, when she saw the arrowhead?
Well, she saw it, and then my dad said, "Hey, bought it at a gift shop or something." He couldn't. He didn't want
Sounds just like an Italian guy. Ah!
Yeah. But
get out of here.
That was one thing. That was one thing. Then I could say I had 2 UFO sightings. One when I was little, and one here in Florida.
Legitimate UFO sightings.
Yes, one when I was little, broad daylight. I was outside my home playing
up in the Northeast.
Yep, backyard, and playing in the backyard. And I'm looking up at now keep in mind, I did always have a fascination. Like I said, I always felt like there's something more to this. So I knew about UFOs. I was into sci-fi. I loved Star Trek, the original series.
Absolutely. So, the real Star Trek.
Yeah, the real Star Trek. And I'm watching, see something.
Not into Star Trek myself.
Yeah, I see. So I'm watching the sky be over my house because I see like what I thought was a plane, but it's not flying straight. It was going in a zigzag.
Wow.
Back and forth. And I screamed because I wanted my dad to come out. Now, this is something he actually saw. And then for years later, he would say, "Yeah, I saw it. I don't know what it was, but it was something." It was actually the classic saucer shaped dark gray with some kind of antenna sticking out the top. And this thing didn't make a sound. It wasn't that big. And it just sort of zigzagged across, and it just went north and disappeared into the horizon.
Have you ever lost time?
No, never lost any time. As a matter of fact, I've had a hypnotist try to hypnotize me, and they couldn't do it.
That doesn't surprise me a bit. So Dad saw the UFO too?
What?
Your dad saw the UFO as well.
He saw it, and and he used to be when he retired down here, he'd be like an Ancient Aliens fan. He would just watch that show because he remembers seeing that, but he says, "I saw it; it was real, but I still don't believe it." So yeah. But then here in Florida, I was actually in this room right here.
About how long ago?
4 years. 4 years ago. Now by now I've also had some flight training. So I'm very familiar with aircraft. I had about 12 hours of actual flight time and some simulator time. So I'm pretty knowledgeable about airplanes and what they can and can't do. And, what kind of noises they make and everything and the kind of lights they have.
Which is key.
Yeah. And so I'm here in Florida. I'm actually in here playing Call of Duty, I think, on the Xbox. and I hear my daughter screaming and my wife is screaming, "Hurry up, get out of here, get out of here." So I go outside and we're looking up in the sky. She said, my wife said she saw this coming up out of the horizon and it stunned her because it just didn't look right. Yeah. And it was this multicolored orb. And it was like spinning and it was changing colors. And this thing flew like up and then it flew over and then it it went straight up, right out into space, not at any great speed or anything. But
was it close to you, or was it more far away?
It was pretty far, wasn't that close? And but it was close enough for me to see it, but close enough for me that when it flew over the house, I knew it wasn't a helicopter. I knew it wasn't a plane.
Also, it flew over your house.
Yeah, when we first saw it, it was in the distance. There's like an antenna that's one of those cell tower or communication antennas in the distance. And when this thing was coming up, it was silent, and then when it came over, it was completely silent. Didn't make any sound at all, and the lights were all wrong. There was no navigation lights on this thing. It wasn't like
that's amazing.
Red on the right, blue on the. It was nothing. It was, and then this thing what it did was it climbed straight up. It stopped going across and it went straight up. And at that point, I'm like, well, that just blew, like nothing can do that like that. And then, I'm like, I don't know what the heck that was, but, and amazing.
Then. Now, Dan, have you ever seen a blue avian? No? Okay.
No, but I did tell you my dogs hate blue jays. My dog hate blue jays with a passion. They over other birds, they can land in the yard, no problem. But a blue jay comes near the house, and the dogs will go bananas.
So the dogs are smart. They don't like those blue birds any more than I do.
No, they don't. No. And I don't believe in that blue bird stuff. No.
Dan, what percentage of law enforcement would you say is awake?
I don't know, because to tell you the truth, it's just not something you talk about.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because basically most people, until recently, I think something happened, because all of a sudden my YouTube channel is blown up and I'm getting messages all the time and my subscribers are climbing. I don't even know why. Most people do not want to know the information that I have and stuff that you're presenting, and they don't want to know.
And police officers don't tend to be chatty Cathys, right, about their personal life and stuff.
Not with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I would think that you don't want to be like say anything that would make you seem vulnerable or crazy or silly. So
yeah, and believe me, what's weird is reality is stranger than any fiction.
It really is. It really is. Now, as a person with a background in psychiatric and psychological thought, what are your ideas on COINTELPRO?
What?
COINTELPRO.
COINTELPRO?
Yes.
What is that?
That's just a question that's come up in the chat room a couple times. I'm not COINTELPRO. Let me go ahead and just
I can
Google that real quick.
Intel processors for my computer.
COINTELPRO was a series of covert and often illegal projects conducted by the United States FBI aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, discrediting, and disrupting American political organizations.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know about it by that name, but I tell you what, local law enforcement and the feds generally do not get along.
And there's a reason for it, apparently.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, I think the founding fathers, the way the founders of the Constitution, they wanted a broken, interconnected small government. That was their original.
And they certainly didn't want 50 states ruled by I was going to say quasi, but it's really just there's really a king in Washington. He just changes every few years. It was supposed to be sovereign states, but we digress.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I see. Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. So you have like this, it's just a different mindset between local and federal. I mean, some of those people are good too, but when you're working in that kind of environment, it gets okay. I'm not into politics.
Right.
I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. I sign up for something like this to do something that I consider good. But then when you get there, after a while, it wears you down because it's politics. It's like this guy is trying to get promoted, or that guy wants to do this, or and it's like, I don't care about that. I never actually saw it for promotion. I didn't care for it. I didn't want it to.
Interesting.
So anyway, but back to the metaphysical, stuff. The whole thing that I started realizing was that when you really look at the whole totality of the information, and I don't know if you know this, but like the University of Virginia Perceptual Studies Division, they pretty much have proven reincarnation happens.
I did not. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, if it's one of the links in the link section on my website.
Okay.
University of Virginia Perceptual Studies Division.
And what is your website, Dan?
OverWatchProject.com.
OverWatch. I'm going to put it in the chat room. OverWatchProject.com.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a religion that said reincarnation doesn't happen, right? Christianity does not allow for it. But there's data that actually says the contrary is true. And they know this because, I mean, there's some cases out there that are mind blowing when you see them. They
really are.
Right. And then you have this near death experience stuff, right? So the near death experience phenomena is key because it's what they call veridic information, verifiable.
Right.
And the thing that even these scientists, like you have these great minds out there, like Rupert Sheldrake and Pim van Lommel and others, that study NDEs and stuff like that. But even they get it wrong sometimes when a lot of these people, they keep saying it's anecdotal stuff. It's not anecdotal, okay? If you don't work in this kind of work, you don't realize anybody who directly witnesses or experiences something is a direct witness, and that is direct evidence. Okay. And what you had with near-death experience data, which really blew the whole thing wide open for me, that and the reincarnation phenomena, is that you have case after case after case of a person having an NDE in a controlled environment, in a hospital or in other thing where doctors and nurses are present. People come out of their bodies, they witness things going on that they can't possibly have known, either inside or outside the room somewhere else. That gets verified by other people, like doctors and nurses, etc.
It is amazing.
It is amazing. And then they also experience the so-called tunnel, dead relatives, all this other stuff that comes together. And what I was having a problem with was that when you're looking at what atheists try to tell you and religions, nothing was matching the data these people were telling you.
Much love from the chat room for you, Dan, by the way.
Oh, thanks. I'm doing my best. I'm a little nervous.
No, you're doing great. You don't seem nervous at all.
Oh,
and you got this guy that keeps interrupting you all the time, so I don't know how you're doing that.
I've watched your interviews before, and you're very nice. Thanks.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So anyway, you have this veridic data that's direct evidence. Then you have all this reincarnation data. Then you have the religions, and then you have the atheists, right? Now, these are the two false dichotomies of reality. This is where your Hegelian dialectic comes together. So they want you to pick between one of these religions or some form of atheism, okay? And if there's an intro on my website where I do the Star Wars scroll thing.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Right. And
so it's the false perception of choice. Choose from these three and pretend you really have a choice.
Yeah, I think when the light went off for me was when I was still in my Christian mindset and I was watching, there was Ken Ham and Bill Nye debate. And it just clicked. I'm like, they're both wrong. They're both wrong because Ken Ham would be showing something that Bill Nye could not defend, and Bill Nye would show Ken Ham something, but neither one of them were interested in the truth. They were just interested in debating their points of view. And
right.
And so this goes on everywhere, right? You have atheists debating religion people. I don't see anybody really wanting to debate you. They don't want to do it, right? You try to get L.A. Marzulli to debate you, right?
And just to that point, no, they don't. And I think they think that I'm going to like gotcha them and go after them, ad hominem. But all I really wanted to do with Marzulli and with Scotty Clark is just to show that what they're teaching is demonstrably Jesuit doctrine, show them that it started from the Jesuits. It was written by the Jesuits, and just get them to say, okay, this is Jesuit doctrine. Is that okay with you or not? That was all I was looking to do. But it's probably my own fault because sometimes I act like a jerk and then they're afraid I'm going to, you know, be a but I don't know if you ever remember the guy named Chris Putman, who was an
yeah, I watched his documentaries. Yeah, I know he is.
We debated 3 times.
Yeah.
And it was very scholarly. It was very gentlemanly. And it was, but they were hardcore. And unfortunately, he died.
Oh, I didn't know that.
42 years old, and he died.
Isn't it amazing how a lot of these people die suddenly?
I know, the last of the real apologists. And the thing that really set L.A. Marzulli off is I sent him an email because he wouldn't debate me. And I sent him an email that just said, well, you're no Chris Putnam.
Yeah, right.
And boy, did he get mad. But sure. You're right. People don't want to debate.
No, Chris Putnam, he had his, you know, his Christian indoctrination that he was dealing with. But hey,
I don't agree with him, but he was a gentleman.
Yeah, one of the things he pointed out, which was, I think, very important, when I became to realize, because I had gone through the Federalist Papers in my research and reading that and stuff, and it was clear to me these people are not really Christians making this Constitution.
Exactly.
And then I realized through one of Chris Putnam's documentaries that they were deists, which is probably why we actually have some semblance of freedom of everything here. You know, that comes from that thing where they didn't want any particular religion like controlling anything.
Exactly.
Because deists, you know, they just believe that there's some unknowable God out there, and they just, you know, they don't prescribe any kind of religion to it. And it's clear, like Thomas Jefferson, you know, was a deist or something. He definitely,
absolutely,
yeah. And so anyway, back to that thing. So anyway, when you have these all this data that you can go through, and you have I get comments from people, they either understand what I'm saying or they have these one-liners. Like the atheist will send me there's no soul. When you die, it's over. Or the religious person will tell me, repent now or burn in hell forever. Like, and I'm like, no, I you know, you guys are just probably going to get recycled back here. All right. You're not going to get out. And the whole thing, like even Buddhism has problems because they kind of want to try to rob you of your, the way they see it. It's like this whole thing is kind of like a soulless nirvana. It's sort of like robs you of your individuality, I think.
Right.
And I don't know, you know, because there's like 500 years missing between like the original Buddha, whoever he was, and whatever writings that later evolved. So when I look at like things like non-attachment, I look at it as like this. I just don't want to come back here. I don't want to come back to this reality after I finally die. It's about not falling for any trap to get reincarnated. I think the Tibetan monks were onto that. Mm-hmm. The Tibetan version of Buddhism with their Book of the Dead, which you were going over, the American version of that.
At least having the sovereignty to be able to decide where you want to go after here. Yeah,
because let's face it, if you really think about what people are describing in near-death experiences, they're describing a state of being that is far superior to what we have in human form.
That's true. If it's a correct and real thing they're viewing, then yeah, they are definitely.
Like you have cases of blind people being able to see, vision being 360 degrees. I can't even imagine what that would look like. Being able to move and go anywhere you want by thought.
Amanda says, take DMT, you'll know.
And then all this stuff that they describe. And so you know how you have people that they fixate on trying to get superpowers?
Right.
Okay, I would say it's the exact opposite. We are sub-powered. We have been robbed of our superpowers. We have been given amnesia. When you take all the pieces and put it together, it's not a good picture, right? We've been given amnesia. This BS about karma doesn't make any sense. This whole thing where people want to tell you you're here to learn. It's all about love. Nothing that's all about love could possibly allow some of the things that goes on in this world to continue.
Absolutely.
So it's really all, to me, I think Robert Monroe, when he was out of body in his book Far Journeys, when he described the whole Loosh farm concept, I think that he saw that's like the model, that this reality is some type of soul farm, some type of Loosh farm. And there's just like it's even with the UFO thing. I think UFOs are also part of these entities, you know.
I think so too. What'd you think of now I just lost Robert Stanley's take on the whole thing, that it's not real, it's a matrix?
Well, you have actual, like I said, when you listen to people's information, they give it to you with interpretation, but you actually have across the board agreement from the atheistic scientists that now say that we live in a hologram, this is a simulation, although there seems to be no limit to what an atheist can have an accident for.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? There's no limits to their accidents. It's just a meaningless accident, just happens to be. Yesterday it was a rock in my front yard, but today it's a brand new laptop because accidentally it turned into that. I mean, they have no end to their accidents. And then you have the religion people. They're all pretty much universal agreement that we are veiled or hidden from a realm that we can't see.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay,
and they're kind of telling the same story.
Yeah, universal agreement that we live in a fake world. And when you study like Sun Tzu's Art of War,
what a great read.
All right, when you have to deceive whatever it is you're controlling, you're operating from a state of weakness.
Absolutely. So, I just talked with Jay Campbell about this earlier.
We are obviously being deceived about reality. So yeah, I mean, I think Robert Stanley was on to something there. He's got his own personal experiences that he bases this on. I'm not sure. You have all this stuff with Lucifer and all this other stuff, but to be honest with you, my research, the way I went through all this, like you pointed out also, it's something, a thought form, an archetype that's formed that we created, because like Satan is just a word that means adversary, right?
Correct.
And then Lucifer, well, really, that's just a choice of translation in the 1611 Bible.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden it becomes a name. And then you have these Christian truthers out there that want to take the book of Isaiah, what is it, chapter 14, when it goes, that's
yep.
Okay. They always leave out the first paragraph, where it's clearly directed at the king of Babylon.
Exactly.
It's a rant against an actual living king that's torturing them or keeping them in captivity. And then you have all this partial section that they read to you that makes it seem like they're talking about some Satan or something like that. And
you really have done a lot of great study.
Yeah, it's taken me a long time. It wasn't something that came easy, and every time it was uneasy. Like once I broke free of, okay, none of this. Maybe the Gnostics had something going on there, but then of course every time they became popular, they were all killed. Like the Cathars, everybody that organizes into any kind of group and says, "Hey, this world is crap, and we got to get out of here."
Exactly.
All of a sudden, bad things happen to them.
Now, right? Dan, is this the kind of stuff that we hear on the Overwatch channel?
That's what my whole channel's about. Yes, because I'm trying to show people the information, and every video usually has a ton of like. Here's one thing that really has disturbed people. One of my most popular videos. It's titled "Scientists Know the Earth is at the Center of the Universe." Now, this is a bizarre thing. The first video I made on it, I was still with Christian indoctrination, so there's a mixture of Christian stuff in there.
Okay.
The next three videos, I try to explain that I've changed my views a little bit, but this is still true. So there is something called the axis of evil, a cosmological axis of evil. A name comes from atheistic astrophysicists like Lawrence Krauss. See, what a lot of people don't realize is the Big Bang Theory has been already disproven. It's completely wrong. Okay. And this also feeds into everything's sort of like this. This is like a matrix, like a hologram, right? So you have 3 satellites. I forget the order, but Planck was last. You have WMAP, Kobe, and Planck. These 3 satellites, well, they sent up one. It went out there to study the known universe, to measure the cosmic background radiation. It spent years in space sending back data. Scientists get the data back, and they found it so disturbing that they had to spend billions more dollars and send up a second satellite, because they said this can't be right. This cannot be right. So what they found was, and there's actually a quote that I linked to on one of those videos from Lawrence Krauss. He's a big time atheist, astronomer, and he says this is totally bizarre. It changes everything. It ruins all of our models. It would literally mean we're at the center of the universe. So what they sent up the second satellite, this thing returns the exact same information. Yep. And what it was seeing was that instead of a random Big Bang explosion, which is what they sent up the first satellite to see, it doesn't see that. The satellite sees ordered structure in the cosmic background radiation, hot and cold spots that are in perfect design.
I remember seeing this data. Yeah.
So they decided to spend billions more dollars and set up the third satellite, Planck, with all new technology, different flight path. They redid everything. They send this thing, and this thing's going to prove the Big Bang theory is right, and this other stuff. We made a mistake on the other 2 satellites. Well, this satellite returns and reaffirms the same data. Okay, and where they get this axis of evil, because there's apparently actual axis lines that cross the ecliptic plane of the Earth that mark it like an axis.
And an AXIS axis, right?
Yeah, axis of evil. They call it if you look up cosmological axis of evil, you see a whole Wikipedia entry on it.
Amazing.
Now, when you read like Robert Monroe's experience when he's getting the information bundle about the Lush farm, and you wonder what this garden was that he's describing. In my last video, I submitted that it's the entire universe that we live in. And one of the reasons I try to show people how this is possible is because we make our own universes. I have a PlayStation 4 here, right now. This PlayStation has 2 games on it, one called Elite Dangerous and the other one called No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky only takes 6 gigabytes of information on my hard drive. It has like 5 quintillion planets. You would have to spend, it does something called progressional, it's a progressional algorithm to create the environment. Now, you would literally have to spend, the game manufacturer said, 5 billion years of real time to be able to cover the universe of No Man's Sky.
Crazy.
In Elite Dangerous, they've mapped out the entire galaxy. So it's real stars and their locations. And you could fly your ship. You could just send your ship out there until it runs out of fuel. I mean, you wouldn't get anywhere because the distances are. And then when you think about this whole flat Earth and round Earth thing, it's got nothing to do with that. It's like what Tom Campbell says, what is my big theory of everything? It's all just information. So they can, if you create a simulation, you can make it as big as you want it to be. It's just information. Wow. So like Robert Stanley, yeah, he had a point. Yeah, he's on to something. I don't know his whole concept. A lot of these people, people like to fill in information with stories, so you concoct, your brain wants to fill in the blanks. So he comes up with this whole thing about Lucifer and everything like that. I don't know. I don't know if the dragon is the good one or the bad one. I don't know. I don't know if it means anything, if it's just a symbolic thing.
Very interesting. So you've got OverWatch Project.
Yes.
.com. Do you have a distinctive URL on your YouTube channel?
I think it's just OverWatch channel.
Okay. because I tried to find it today, and I got all the stuff about the game Overwatch, and I couldn't find your YouTube channel.
It came out after me.
What's that?
That came out after me.
Oh, I bet that upset you, huh?
It did. I mean, Overwatch, I actually got the name from a couple different places, but it was just like being able to overwatch over it, you know, and be able to see it clearly. So,
excellent.
Yeah.
Dan, it's been a great visit. The chat room is very excited about your work. I think you're going to pick up a lot of subscribers, and we certainly would like to have you back again. Great information. And thanks for stopping by with us. And again, it's overwatchproject.com, correct?
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. And I appreciate all your help. I hope some of my subscribers, if they didn't know about you, came over, because I told everybody about it earlier today, and people were excited to see it. So
excellent. It sounds great, Dan. Again, thanks so much for that, and we appreciate you being with us. And it's been a great time, and for everybody in the chat room, we appreciate you being here. I salute you for, you know, seeking after truth. And, you know, unindoctrinate yourself, guide your own spirit, master your own ascension, be your own guru. And of course, the way to start that is to be fearless, my friends. For Dan, for Overwatch Channel, I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower, and we will see you next time. Stay right there for a second, Dan, if you will.
Sure.
And we'll be, I'll probably do another show tonight. So if you have a little bit of insomnia, listen for the notification. I'm probably going to be here. Talk to you later, folks.
Okay.
Thanks
Bye.
again.